we have these stocks that are reporting earnings. They have massive growth and massive revenues. What are your thoughts on that? And people argue that this productivity would help us mitigate a lot of the inflation by bringing the costs down.
This is a complicated question. So there's two things I hear in there. I'll take them one at a time. The first is that one man's productivity miracle is another man's lost job, right? So companies are going to be able to be a lot more efficient is the idea. And this has been, in some cases, we've seen some pretty strong evidence for that. In other cases, companies have tried and then retreated and said that wasn't quite the magic sauce we thought it was. Still early. So I'm not sure it's as clear cut as saying, wow, companies can cut half their workforce and be done, right? I think there's more to it than that, but we'll see. But the other side of this story is that AI is consuming an extraordinary amount of our investment dollars. I mean, any country has so much capital to invest, right? And so we've seen the big five, right? Your Microsofts, your Oracles, et cetera, right? That they've taken their free cash flows and they're driven them from really robust to completely negative in just about a year. So they're putting all their cash into this. And then the other part of that story that's really hard to unravel is that there's a lot of circular financing. And, Wall Street Journal did a credible job trying to draw a picture. Bloomberg did a good job. Everybody's trying to get their hands around the circular financing, but it's as simple as Google invests $50 billion in Anthropic, and then Anthropic buys $50 billion of, cloud compute back from Google, and Google books $50 billion of new revenue. But it's kind of got that vendor financing feel of the 2000s. Again, like, I give you money and then you give it back to me. And I'm like, look at all this money I got, right? It's got a little of that going on. But then the largest concern we all have to have is we don't know what the business model is yet for all the AI, right? And these companies are consuming extraordinary amounts of capital. Just Anthropic and OpenAI have committed about $1 trillion of future cloud compute off of the major suppliers. Where are they going to get $1 trillion? Well, they're going to charge subscription fees. Okay, are they on track to get to $1 trillion? In how long will that take? And then we have to ask the derivative question, which is these AI data centers. They set them up. They put these latest NVIDIA chips in there, the H200s or whatever they're using. Those things last apparently like 3 to 5 years, and then they have to be replaced. Now, that's not the whole cost of a data center, but it's a pretty big chunk. So the next question is, at what rate are they depreciating these things? And often we find when we dig into their statements that they are depreciating chips that are burning up in 3, maybe 4, maybe 5 years, and they're depreciating them on a 9-10 year schedule, depending. And so that just sets you up for future. The gains look good early, but later on, you're going to have to recognize those accrual losses when they finally show up on your doorstep. So we're watching all of this sort of accumulate, and the thing that needs to emerge, and I mean soon, is what's the business model that can match the cash burn, the infrastructure investment, depreciation cycle? What can match that? And I haven't seen that business model yet. It's not yet appeared on my screen.
So you're seeing a lot of uncertainty with this AI. Is not clear what will come out of it.
Well, no, it's very exciting, and I use it all the time. But I think it's kind of like, it's just one of those new technology adoption cycles, right? Will it be VHS? Will it be Blu-ray? Will it be Betamax? Oops, none of them. It was streaming. It's just, you go through those sort of like surprises along the way, and the obvious winners at the beginning are usually not the same people who show up at the end for a variety of reasons. So on that front, yeah, I'm confident that there's going to be just a huge amount of turbulence in this space, but we are investing an extraordinary amount of our nation's energy resources into this. Natural gas is going into funding the electricity for these data centers. We're putting an enormous amount. We're spending investment money on this, not that, right? So what's the not that part of the story? You usually talk about the exciting new part, but what's missing? Because we're putting $1 trillion here and not $1 trillion there. And so that part, I think, hasn't been talked about enough yet.
Going back to the printing and money supply, do you think the inflation will surge from here, or do you think things will change? And we have a new Fed chair, and is there a way to cut back on the money supply or do things in a different way that we've been doing in the past?
That's a political question, because we all know Trump has been leaning on the Fed to cut rates. I don't think cutting rates does anything in this environment, because post-2009, it's been entirely different. Pre-2009, cutting rates was a synonym for the Fed would put cash out into the system. Like you're JP Morgan, I'm like, oh, I'm giving you cash now and I'm taking your bonds back now. So now, that's what I'm doing. That cuts rates because now you have all this cash and so you're going to loan it to other banks overnight and at lower and lower rates. And that's how they would accomplish it. Post-Bernanke 2009, all they do is they set what's called the interest on excess reserves to a new level, and that jumps the interest rate. No cash enters or leaves the market as a consequence. So it doesn't have the same liquefying events. So it's a little bit of a different transmission mechanism. Sure, lower rates, a quarter point. I don't know if that's really going to make somebody buy a house, buy a car that was, wasn't going to beforehand. So that's a really sloppy transmission mechanism. You can push on that and it's slow and doesn't do a lot. But what they can do is create the conditions so that there's a lot of excess liquidity out there. And that's now a different process from interest rates. So that's fine. But they're facing something here, which I think is quite extraordinary. This is a chart here that shows inflation comparing the 70s to today. This comes from James Lavish, the informationist. I first saw this on Apollo Group's. Torsten Slok put out this exact same one, but this is updated, so I'm using this one instead. In blue, we have inflation in the 70s. So we came up here through 1966, 68, 1970. We hit a little bottom in 72. And then boom, we had this huge peak of inflation here at about 12% or so. And then it came down. Everything's looking good. 1976, 78. And then boom. Now we got up to 14.5% inflation by 1980. And it came down. In green is today. And here we see us starting about in 2014. Coming up through 2020, this is the big stimmy check COVID inflation here. It came down and now it's just turned up again right here in April at 3.78%, but it's going higher. And we know it's going higher because this is the PPI, the producer price index always leads the CPI or the consumer price index. And so here we can see in blue, the PPI, in red, the CPI. And we see here what always happens, the PPI turns up, and this is actually, believe it or not, about 5 months right here, back in from July of 2020 in through January of 2021. Nothing much was happening here on the CPI. But then, sure enough, because the PPI blasted up starting in July of 21, you see the CPI follows. Similarly, the PPI turns down first, CPI carries on for a while, and then it follows. And this is a very established cycle here. Let's turn our attention to the most recent reading with the PPI at 6%. 2, 3, 4, 5 months, depending on how long this PPI is leading in this case, we're going to be seeing CPI turning up to close to 6%. Probably just in time for the midterms, which will be problematic, I would assume. But that's pretty astonishing. And if it follows that same arc I talked about before, because this energy shock is going to create, very much more expensive oil, if that happens, we could easily be seeing inflation double from there or even higher.